this. You can't be serious about that, can you?
I'm very serious about it.
I'll give him credit for that because there's a lot of the bravery
For running away when he got tired.
the
When
bravery.
sorry.
No, go.
Sorry. From round one, running away, jumping up and down, falling down on the floor. Yeah.
$1 million
He did not, but go ahead.
for a clown show, for a freaking clown show. Jake Paul embarrassed himself, embarrassed the sport, and embarrassed everyone that calls himself a fighter.
Stephen A. Smith confronted Jake Paul following his knockout loss to Anthony Joshua during a live interview. Smith questioned why Jake chose to fight someone at such an elite level so early in his boxing career, calling it a dangerous decision. Jake responded confidently, saying he still has everything he needs, the best team money can buy, elite training, and belief in himself. He insisted that this loss does not stop him from continuing his boxing journey and that he remains committed to proving himself in the sport.
I need a few more fights. I'm not taking him on in my next bout, but a couple more years of experience with the team I got. I'm surrounded by the best team in the world possible that money can afford, so I'm getting exponentially better.
After the fight, Logan Paul addressed the reaction from fans and critics, dismissing much of it as hate that would have existed regardless of the outcome. He explained that competing at this level naturally brings intense scrutiny. Logan acknowledged that no one realistically expected Jake to defeat a two-time Olympic champion, but emphasized that his brother's confidence and willingness to take the risk made the effort meaningful. Even after suffering a broken jaw, Jake remained positive, joking, and filming content in the hospital. Logan highlighted this mindset as proof of Jake's resilience, mental toughness, and love for boxing, describing the fight as a net positive despite the loss.
They're haters. Haters gonna hate. It's just the name of the game, you know. When you're operating at the high level that my brother and I are, the haters come with it. I mean, statistically speaking, part-timer, I think the narrative's dead. I've been showing up every single Monday for the past month and a half. I've wrestled in 4 out of the 5 times I was there. I won every single match. So like, everyone who's yapping can now shut their trap because the narrative's dead.
I mean, you brought the receipts. I think that the proof stands for itself. And you mentioned your brother. Jake went 6 rounds on Friday night with Anthony Joshua. I know how proud you are of him. You were in the hospital with him afterwards. You called him an absolute warrior and said on your Instagram that his broken jaw won't break his spirit. How did you think, and what did you think of how the fight went down?
So, from strictly a logical point of view, I actually think it went down exactly as it was supposed to. I'm not sure anyone really thought that Jake was going to beat Anthony Joshua, but you have to understand, being his brother and in his close circle, he has this conviction that makes you believe, and he has this ability to defy reality and morph it into his vision of how it'll transpire that makes you think he'll win. However, like this was my opinion, this was a logical conclusion to the fight. The 2-time Olympian broke the influencer boxer's jaw. Like, okay, you know, we could have wrote it in a story and it would have made sense. That said, I think he did amazing. I'm incredibly proud of him. I think it was a net positive. I think the world can see now how tough Jake Paul is.
Eddie Hearn offered a more measured perspective on Jake Paul's performance. He explained that critics who claimed Jake was simply running failed to understand the reality of the matchup. From the start, Jake had little chance of winning against someone of Anthony Joshua's caliber, so survival became the primary objective. Hearn stressed that the real question was how long Jake could last, and by surviving 6 rounds, he exceeded expectations. Many believed he would not last more than a round or 2. Enduring that long against a top-tier heavyweight, Hearn argued, demonstrated resilience, mental strength, and the ability to handle extreme pressure, even if Jake was never competitive in a traditional sense.
Jake was running and Jake was hold. But listen, I mean, at the end of the day, Jake had one job, and that was to try and survive. I mean, he was never ever going to win the fight, ever. And if you would have said to me, do I think he'll go 6 rounds? I would have said absolutely not. I mean, I felt that it would take AJ a couple of rounds to get hold of him, because I knew Jake can move a bit and he'd be moving off the back foot and he'd be holding. But it was the way that he did it, I think, was actually quite impressive. Like, not that particular part, but the way that he would you know, the way that he was strong in the clinch, you know, he wouldn't let AJ get his shots off in the clinch. He made him miss a few times. And obviously AJ's been out of the ring for a while. But to be honest, I think the most fascinating thing of the whole night in terms of the fight was how he didn't get flatlined by that right hand. I mean, I said going into the fight, he's probably going to take AJ a few rounds to get hold of him. And I also said, as soon as he lands clean, the fight's over, right? He landed a few before, but the first that he landed really clean was the final shot. But, you know, he never flatlined Jake. I mean, he did break his jaw in 2 places, which is a disaster, but there are a lot of heavyweights that would have been out cold from that right hand. I mean, one of them was Francis Ngannou in a pretty similar shot, really. Do you know what I mean? So I actually give Jake unbelievable credit for doing it in the first place, but his performance as well. I mean, I stand by the fact that I think he's just a decent cruiserweight, but like, he did go in with Anthony Joshua, and look, the world is full of criticism and opinions and negativity. Who else is doing what he's doing at what is he, late 20s? I mean, quite phenomenal. I mean, the guy's a complete madman. I'm watching him come out to that ring walk, and he's just a...
Stephen A. Smith went further, stating that Jake Paul cannot rely on his YouTuber background as an excuse when stepping into the ring with elite professionals. Smith argued that if Jake still identifies primarily as a content creator, then he has no business facing top-level boxers. According to Smith, entering fights of this magnitude requires full professional commitment, accountability, and acceptance of the risks involved, rather than leaning on fame or crossover appeal.
Boxing trainers for years. He takes the sport very seriously.
Thank you. So let me ask you, that's the question I have, because great kid, great businessman, by the way, amazing, and I know how he does all this, the character and the persona. We keep saying that he doesn't want to be a boxer. He's not a boxer, but then
Jake Paul is a boxer.
Yeah, exactly.
That's my point.
Exactly. He's a boxer.
He can fight. I respect it. So go in there against fighters. You should be climbing the ladder towards those other fighters and taking the sport seriously to the point where you're fighting.
Derek Chisora refused to give Jake Paul significant respect following the fight, questioning the idea that simply stepping into the ring qualifies as bravery. He dismissed arguments from figures like Chris Eubank Jr., who praised Jake for lasting 6 rounds. Chisora pointed out that Jake spent much of the fight running, clinching, falling, and throwing very few punches. He argued that bravery is not about showing up for money or enduring punishment, but about taking meaningful risks for a greater purpose. While Jake committed to the event, Chisora emphasized that surviving 6 rounds does not automatically earn respect for skill or courage, especially when the loss is turned into social media content.
You're fighting someone who you're supposed to have, it's not supposed to look competitive, he's not supposed to hit you, he's not supposed to go more than 3 rounds, but at the same time, you need to know how to control the pressure. I think AJ's demeanor in the build-up was someone who was like, you know what, everyone's saying these things, but this is how I see it. Yeah, I rate him, he can box a bit. He did say in an interview with Steve Bunce that, like, when he was talking certain things, there's a part of me that wants to punch him in his face, but I'm just gonna chill. And I feel like that's how he handled the immense pressure.
The last time we saw AJ fuming like this, like when he actually tried to do something, was with Dylan. So we should not judge him when he says something like this, because when he don't say nothing, we say, oh, why is he not saying anything back? And when he says something, we're like...
Another analyst echoed this criticism, arguing that respect should not be attached to Jake Paul in this situation. He stated that the fight was driven by money rather than genuine competition. Inside the ring, Jake's repeated grabbing and holding suggested fear rather than composure. The analyst explained that this reaction was understandable because Anthony Joshua is not a washed fighter, but a dangerous and active heavyweight known for backing up his words. As Joshua's punches began landing closer, Jake became increasingly defensive. According to the analyst, this was self-preservation, not bravery. He concluded that while a payday nearing $92 million would tempt many people, financial reward alone does not earn respect in boxing.
About that before getting in the ring with him. And I think a lot of things were revealed inside the ring. You know, all the grabbing of the leg and stuff like that. That shouldn't have been. You know, that almost looked like, it reminded me of Troy. You guys remember Troy when Orlando Bloom's character grabbed his brother's leg, you know? You know what I mean? It looked like he was desperately scared, you know? But I think he should have been desperately scared because AJ was coming to hurt him. This wasn't a Mike Tyson fight. He wasn't 58 years old. This dude is 36. And Anthony Joshua, like he said, because I've heard AJ say stuff like that. Hey, I'm going to F you up. He said the same thing to Hellenius. Because he thought Hellenius was looking at him crazy. And it's like, what do you know, why are you looking at me like that? Right? And Hellenius like, oh, you know. And what happened to Hellenius? He got knocked out, and needless to say, he tested positive for something. But yeah, so if you hear AJ say, hey, I'm gonna F you up, oh yeah, that's what he means. And I think Jake Paul knew it. And I mean, he avoided a lot of big shots at the beginning of that fight, you know. But then as AJ started getting closer and those punches started getting, you know, more in range of hitting him, the grabbing happened a lot, you know, more, you know. He started gripping up.
Chris Mannix and Sergio Mora placed most of the blame on Jake Paul while breaking down Anthony Joshua's 6-round knockout win. They argued that Jake not only lost the fight, but embarrassed himself and the sport by displaying a lack of fundamental boxing skills. Mora explained that real fighters are trained to operate under fatigue, pain, and danger, while Jake learned how to punch but not how to fight. Both analysts claimed Joshua controlled the bout and held back, choosing not to finish Jake earlier despite having the ability to do so. They described the fight as disappointing and damaging to boxing's image.
Freaking clown show. Jake Paul embarrassed himself, embarrassed the sport, and embarrassed everyone that calls himself a fighter. And I've been telling you this for years. The thing about boxers is we train to be tired. We train to be hurt. We train to roll with punches. We train for a lot of things that this YouTube Disney star has been nobody. Never learned the trait. He never learned how to fight. He learned how to throw some punches. He learned how to box. And I told you it's because Jake Paul had the resources. He can have a head start in this career like you did in life, and you can make it out. But the thing is, when a fighter really wants to hurt another non-fighter, he can do it, and he can do it a lot easier and a lot faster. Anthony Joshua played with his food, and I'm going to tell you right now, he played with his food. I don't think he should have went to the 6th round, maybe the 4th at latest, because Jake Paul was running. He wasn't boxing. He was running, and every time he had a chance to try to tackle Anthony Joshua in fear, he was on his knees. It looked like he was praying. Jake Paul spent more times on his knees than you did in college praying for a girlfriend. It was embarrassing, Chris Mannix. It was embarrassing. And all the people that tuned in to Netflix and everyone else, just like the Mike Tyson fiasco that happened a couple of years ago, we feel disgusted for having to watch that.
I'm not going to defend the fight. It was a bad fight. It was actually worse.
You're not going to put him on. You're not going to put him on the cover of Sports Illustrated again?
No, because we put him on the cover of Sports Illustrated for very different reasons than boxing. It was a power.
Ben Shalom strongly criticized the fight, calling it a freak show that crossed a dangerous line. As a promoter, Shalom stressed that boxing carries serious medical risks and warned that fights treated as entertainment can quickly become tragedies. He argued that the sport is being mocked when a mediocre fighter jumps weight divisions to face a 2-time world champion. According to Shalom, money keeps many people silent, but these events risk misleading fans, young viewers, and sponsors about what boxing truly represents. He emphasized that boxing is always one punch away from disaster.
On the Jake Paul, Anthony Joshua circumstance, I mean, a lot of people talking about the discredit it does to boxing. I don't put it in the category of boxing. I put it in the category of entertainment and Anthony Joshua being introduced to America as a media star. What's your overall view of what it does or doesn't do for boxing? Jake Paul being licensed in a fight that many people think that he shouldn't have been licensed to fight, in a commission that often does that. As a promoter, do you think it's a bad look for boxing, or are you thinking it doesn't really matter, it's not really what boxing's about?
I usually and have said in the past that things can be things, you know, you've got to take it for what they are, but in this occasion I do think I do think it is a freak show, if I'm honest. I also think it's dangerous. I'm sat here as a boxing promoter and I see what goes on with the medicals before and after fights and how dangerous the sport is. And I saw Callum Simpson, the fight should have been stopped way before it was, but was in trouble on Saturday night. It's all a bit of fun and it's all a money grab until someone gets seriously hurt, seriously damaged, and then the whole sport comes into disrepute. For me, it makes a mockery of the sport of boxing. For me, no one in the industry wants to talk badly about it because everyone's lined, the pockets are getting lined. And when you look at that, and kids will look at that, and fans will look at that, and sponsors will look at that and think that that is boxing, as I say, we're one punch away from something serious. And yeah, it's
Ben, on the flip side of that argument, mate, you will tell me that you knew that Chris Eubank wasn't right to go into that fight.
No, but let's be completely honest, right? Whatever you want to say about that fight, these are two experienced professional fighters. Chris Eubank Jr. has been in fights previously in his career.
Duke McKenzie also criticized the level of opposition Jake Paul faces, calling it extremely poor. He suggested that fighters from his own gym, many of whom are not elite professionals, could perform just as well or better in these crossover bouts. McKenzie mocked the idea of being labeled a world champion after short fights against weak opposition, saying the titles mean very little. He expressed frustration with athletes from other sports entering boxing for easy money, stressing that boxing is an elite discipline that should not be diluted by novelty competitions.
It would take a lot of my time and a lot of my patience to train these guys. Now, they don't know a right hook from a meat hook. They don't know a jab, from a proper boxing jab to a jab in the arm with an injection. They haven't learnt the basic fundamentals. Nobody's taught them to keep their hands up and their chin down. Nobody's taught them how to jab properly. Like I say, these guys were just swinging shots on a wing and a prayer, and it was quite painful to watch. I don't know who coaches these guys. I don't know. Maybe they're MMA, maybe they're kickboxers, maybe they're professionals in their chosen field, but they're not being trained by boxing coaches. That's clear. What I would do, you'd have to strip them down and start from square one. And I mean, I've got a lot of guys in my gym, and a lot of these guys probably would do better if they entered this Misfits competition. I'd have guys from my gym calling themselves world champion, because at the end of the 6 rounds, Timur was crowned and still heavyweight world Misfits champion. Well, if that's the level of opposition, I might even head a few of my guys into that, see if they can't nick a few quid. They're not going to get hurt. It's what surprises me about all of these crossover organisations that want to, you've got footballers that want to be boxers, you've got MMA that want to be boxers, you've got boxers that want to be boxers, you've got table tennis, you've got cricketers, you've got name any sport you want.
That's it for today's video. Stay tuned. Until next time.